some variation thereof, right? Those are his two options. And there's pros and cons for him, pros and cons for me. Not one that's right, one that's wrong, it just depends on what works in the situation. But like we talked about, if he climbs to the mount, which is not a bad idea at all, he is giving me the option of counterattacking his leg because he's extending the leg across his body, which means he's not keeping it tight and allowing me to counterattack it back. We can do almost the exact same thing if he pulls us to the underhook side. With the caveat, as you guys can imagine, we've got to beat the head. Because we said if we can't beat the head, we've got to beat the hook. But if I beat this hook, then by nature, it's out of the game and I can't really counterattack it back very easily. Now I can try to set up a counterattack in this leg, but that would involve several more transitions and pummels and what have you. But if we have strong defensive grips that allow us to look into the choke, which allows us to win the head fight, I'm now not afraid of the choke, means he could still think about climbing to the mount. Slightly different dynamic because his hands are on the opposite side, he has the underhook on the far instead of on the near arm, but the same principle from his perspective. The nice thing for me is I don't need to break his grips to get my frame against his hip, which means as he starts thinking about climbing, it's very easy for me to create that wedge, connect my knee and my elbow, put my foot in the top of his hip, and we get to work. Everyone with me so far? Most of that is the exact same thing that we've worked on from other standpoints. We're just going to do it from the underhook side instead of the overhook side. So he takes me to the underhook side. Remember, I'm using the old man defense, the stuff where you got jacked up elbows so I can't get my hands into the right position, which means I'm crossing to the elbow instead of staying both hands on the wrist, which I can only do if he keeps his hands low. If he keeps his hands high, which he should, my elbows don't bend that way, so I have to switch it. But I encourage you to do the correct defense if you have healthy elbows. Either way, we get to here. I get strong defensive grips, which allow me to look into the choke without immediately getting choked, which allows me to put my weight on his face and win that head fight. Okay, cool, now we can get to work. Now I can drop my elbow. He now has the options to go far hip or near hip. We have options both sides. You guys should be aware of the inside hip at this point. He goes far hip, so my feet go to the mat. I scrape my hips away. I keep him from following me. He may well be coming up. They often will. But I'm creating that wedge, which allows me to get my knee to the inside. If he stays down, that's cool, but I don't expect it. Either way, foot goes to the hip. We now have a strong single X. We're ready to get to work. And it doesn't matter if he's up or if he stayed on his hip. Either way, you're in the same position. Could be overhooked, could be shotgun grip. We'll talk about grips in a few minutes. One more time. He takes me to the underhook side. Strong defensive grips. Don't look into the choke until you've got him. Okay, get away with it. I win that head fight. Cool, now I start to turn my hips. He climbs to the mount, so I block his hip. I swedge away, I connect my knee and my elbow. Now I can take my forearm out. Now I can get my foot into position, whether he's still down on his hip or just climbed up. I'm now ready to get to work. Questions, comments? Sir? Yes. He takes me to the underhook. Strong defensive grips. Do not turn in unless you've got them, or else you'll get choked immediately. Strong defensive grips. Okay, I turn in quickly and I win the head fight. Which means now I can turn my hips. As soon as that happens, I no longer care about my neck. I care about blocking his hip. Work my hips away, connect my knee and my elbow. Once that happens, he can't close the distance, so I can take my left foot over the top. Remember, don't extend yourself away this direction. You lose the leg. Extend yourself away by moving your knee away from your torso, not by moving your foot away from your hamstring. Like the hands of a clock, not a straight line. Now we pinch our knees, we cover our heel with our knee. We're going to get to work. Other questions, guys? All right, let's try it back and forth. Yell at me if you have trouble. 1, 2, 3.